All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. G, and we are going to talk about our movie parody poster today. And we're going to talk about specifically about the mechanics of making our movie parody poster and things that we're going to have to work about. This will probably be a two-part video. Today, we're just going to talk about the images and what we got to do to get the images in. The second part, we'll probably talk about typography a little bit. Okay, we're going to be doing this in two different platforms. We're going to be working in Photoshop. I want you to be familiar with Photoshop. And the other platform we're going to be doing is Photopia. So those are the two platforms we're going to do. I'm going to kind of switch back and forth, and they are really similar. Okay, so there's not as much jump as with some of the other programs we've used in the past. Okay, so it's almost a one-to-one, not quite. So I'll point out when there's differences. Okay, but first we're going to go in here. So what I want to do, so to do this project, you're making a parody of a movie. So, like Spaceballs is a parody of the Star Wars franchise. Okay, that's the idea we're working with here. So, what I'm going to do today, I want to work with the Mandalorian. Okay, from Disney Plus and the Star Wars series here. So, my idea that I've got, I'm going to work in. Got the movie poster that I got from IMDb, and I saved that to my downloads folder, and then I also got this picture of Marlon Brando here. Okay, and my idea is I want to take this and I'm going to put Marlon Brando's head on our Boba Fett character here, and instead of the Mandalorian, it's going to be the Brandolorian. Okay, if you don't know who Marlon Brando is from the Godfather series, it may not be quite as funny to you, but just so you know, trust me, it's hilarious. All right, so how do we do this? Okay, so here I have Photopia that you're looking at. It looks very similar to Photoshop. It's just a little less glossy. Okay, some of the symbols are a little bit different, and we have advertising over here as well. Okay, Mr. G over here, just a little bit. I'll put myself over here in front of the ad. All right, so if we have this here, I'm going to jump over to Photoshop. Let's do the same thing. Okay, so let's go over to Photoshop. And I've got the Brando image over here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to File. And let's just go ahead and make our project, right? Because we never want to work in an image that we download. We don't know exactly what the resolution is. We don't know exactly what the size is, and we need it to be an exact size and resolution. Okay, so what our project calls for is a 9 by 12 by 300. I've already got one here, but if you don't, got 9 inches wide. Make sure you switch this to inches, not pixels or picas or points. 12 inches high. This is going to be a vertical orientation. Resolution's 300, and we're going to name this Movie Parody Your Name. Okay, then go ahead and create that. And I want the background on this one to be white, so I can see that there. All right, so I'm going to create that. All right, so there's my image right there. Okay, now the first thing I need to do is open my two things. I've got my Marlon Brando picture. I got to open up my file that has my picture in it here, and mine is going to be in my folder. Yours should probably be in your downloads folder. You can open it into Photoshop, or you can click and drag it in there. So there I've got my images. Okay, so the first thing I got to do, I got to bring in that Mandalorian picture in there so that I can work on it. I'm going to do Command A to select everything, Command C to copy everything. Then we're going to move back over to my file, Movie Parody Your Name, Command V. Okay, I'll paste that in there. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close that. So I just got this here. Okay, now I'm going to get my move tool, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have the show transformation control selected. If you don't have your little handles, that's why. And I'm just going to size this guy up here. Okay, now I don't want to go outside. Just think of it if you were framing a picture at home. I'm just going to center it in the middle there. Okay, and there we go. I'm feeling pretty good about that. We'll go ahead and commit that. So there's our picture committed. Okay, if I'm over in Photopia, never wants to switch when I do screen record. All right, so I'm here, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go File, I'm going to do New, I want to make a switch to inches. It's going to be 9, 12, going to be inches. High, DPI, going to do 300. Background's going to be white. Okay, then we're going to name the same thing. We're going to call this Movie Parody Your Name. Okay, then we'll push create. So there we got that. So same thing we're going to do here. We're going to go to our movie poster. We're going to do Command A to select all, Command C to copy it. I'm going to go over to Movie Parody. Going to do Command V to paste it. And then we're going to get our Move tool. I'm going to make sure I have my transformation control selected. And on your Photopia, you need to hold down Shift to constrain the file size. Okay, so make sure you hold down Shift to constrain this file size. You see that little red line that just popped up that shows that we're centered. Okay, and again, we're just going to bring it up to about the same area. I want to center it. Right there, I see that red X, I'm centered. All right, so there we got that loaded up in both sides. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take Marlon Brando's head here. I got to click over here. I got that one and that one there. Okay, and I'm going to keep that right there. Okay, let's jump back over here to Photoshop. Okay, so I got that. I've got my Marlon Brando head here somewhere. There he is. Okay, so I need to select his head and bring it into my picture. Okay, so in order to select his head in Photoshop, I can get a quick selection tool here. Photoshop's pretty smart. It's got some AI built in it. I'm just going to click Select Subject. It's going to think about it, and it does a pretty darn good, darn near perfect job of selecting that image. It does a really good job with people in front of backgrounds, because we take more pictures of photos of people than anything else. It has a lot to learn from. Okay, so I'm going to do Command C, Command V into my new picture. I'm going to do Command V right there. There's my Marlon Brando head. Okay, and I'm going to get my Move tool, and I'm going to move it. Command Z, don't do that. I'm going to move my head up here. Okay, I'm going to change my layer name, that one to Brando. I'm going to change this to poster. Okay, jumping over here to our Photoshop that doesn't want to go over there. All right, for Photopia, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select this guy out here, and it doesn't have auto select, but it does have object select. Okay, now it does not work as well as the auto select in Photoshop, but it does a pretty good job. It's this guy right here. We hold down and it says object selection. Okay, and the way this guy works, when I click and drag in here, it is going to make a crosshair. You see that crosshair in there? And you want to totally engulf what you want to select and let go. Okay, now you see I kind of left the top up here. Let's try that one more time. And I'm on, just like a regular in Photoshop, I've got make a new selection, add to selection, subtract to selection, intersection. We're going to go ahead and add to selection. So to add to this, I'm going to go and I'm going to bring that crosshairs in areas where I want it to add to it. Go a little closer here. Don't do that. So I'm going to go and I'm going to bring it right there. Not quite doing it right what I want. Let's do Command D and just start over here. Click and drag. Make sure that my crosshairs is in my whole selections over top of the whole thing. There we go. That's a bit more what we want. Okay. Now in Photopia, you might have to do a little bit of cleaning up there to get that up. So I obviously have to add to selection to clean up on my selection around his hair and everything. And I probably want to grab his bow tie and everything. And you guys know how to do that. I get my selection tool. I just go to add to selection for anything I want to add. And then I would go in here and I would add things that I feel are missing. And you can get all the way down to the pixel, so you can get those all selected in there. Okay. I went ahead and skipped over on this step, and I went ahead and already did that. I've got him all selected out here. Okay, so we're going to take that one and work with that guy on this one. Okay, so I'll take this and we will move him into our picture as well, right there. All right, so going back over here to Photoshop. Okay, so bringing everything in and resizing and selections, all very similar in Photopia and Photoshop. Okay, now what do we got to do? We got to get our head here, and we want to take this and take that head out so we can put Marlon Brando's head on there. Okay, what else do we have to do in here? We're going to have to change the letters here. Okay, now behind the letters I have some images back here. Okay, so there's some stuff, and this is all flat, remember, right? So that all is on one layer, so I can't just move that type away. I've got to eliminate it in some way. So first let's work on his head up here. Okay, so let's go ahead and click off Marlon Brando's head for right now. I'll just click that closed. Okay, and let's look at here and decide what we can do. When we look at that image, we see that we've got his helmet there, and he's in front of this big kind of bright yellow sun behind him. Okay, it's nice and soft in there. So what we can do, we can go and we can we could just paint in there, we could just grab a paintbrush, and we could grab the eyedropper tool and just grab this color right here, and we could literally just paint his head out if we wanted to, right? So that's one way we could do it. A nice big soft brush and just kind of scrub that out of there. Okay, so that's one way we could do that. Another way we could do that, we could go in here with a selection, and we could get in here kind of close, and we could carefully draw out around here and select this. Add to my selection here. So I could carefully select it out there. Looks like I lost a little part of the head there. And I could do a content aware fill, where I would go to edit, fill, content aware. Remember, that is going to take information from the whole image and try to fill it with what it thinks we need to do here. So we'll try that, and it's going to think about it, see what it does. And it takes away a good part of the head there, and that might work for what we need. Is that going to be big enough to cover what we need? When we go and try to put Marlon Brando's head up there, that is probably going to do the job. Okay, his head's a little bit big there, so we'll probably size it down to a place it looks like it's good, but I still got some little area back in there, so I could do another content aware fill, or I could go in and just take my airbrush and paint a little bit. Every situation is going to be a little bit different to what you're doing. Okay, so I'm just going to paint this away. You know, it's usually a combination of effects that you're going to use to make your process work. Okay, I'm going to leave that kind of neck stump there to plant his head on here. Okay, now over here in Photopia, if we can get it to switch, we are going to jump over here. Okay, we're going to again, you can rename layers just like that. We'll do Brando, and we'll do poster. Okay. We're going to do the same thing. We'll go ahead and click off Brando's head here. We're going to get on our poster layer. Okay. And let's try to do a content aware fill over here. Okay. So what does it look like on this side? We're going to make a careful selection. Make sure I'm set to add to selection. Remember, you're on the right layer. Most of the time when your functions seem to be misbehaving is because we have an active selection or we're on the wrong layer. Okay, so make sure we got that all working. All right, so I got a selection going there. Now let's go to edit, and we're going to go to fill content aware on here too. Okay, it's not naturally the naturally selected, so we have to go down and select content aware. Okay, got an opacity, we got some thing, blend modes, and we're going to go ahead and say okay, and we're going to see what it does. It might just lock up. Hmm. All right, there we go. So it did something really weird there, right? So didn't work quite as well, but we can go ahead, like I said, do a combination of things to make that happen. So we can do Command Z if we want to undo that. We can try it one more time. It doesn't work the exact same way every time, so we can try it one more time. Push OK, see what happens. See if it has any better results. Like I said, it always takes information from the entire thing. Sometimes it works better than others, sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, if it doesn't work very well, we can always jump back and get content aware fill and do that. All right, so while we're waiting on that to figure itself out, we'll jump on back here to Photoshop. All right, so let's go in here to Marlon Brando's head here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and grab him. Oop, I painted on the wrong thing, didn't I? No problem, we can just make that go away. Quickly redo that, grabbing my brush on the poster layer. Just kind of thinning that out. All right, so Command D. Gonna put Marlon Brando's head on there. I go in here, I'm gonna get my selection tool because I want to cut out his shoulders and everything but his bow tie there. So maybe I'm just going to go in here and trace around his bow tie. Okay, I'm going to hold down, make sure I'm on add to selection, and then I'm going to go and do the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to delete that extra area there, okay? Hit Command D to unselect that, okay? Got a little bit of area over here I want to fix. I grabbed a bit too much of the jacket there. Go ahead and delete that. Command D again. All right, so now I've got my picture of Marlon Brando here, okay? So essentially all I have to do is size and get him up there, okay? So I'm going to put his head on there. I'm going to kind of back up and look for scale. Does his head look a little too big? It might be a little bit big. So I'm going to take his head down just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to set it down a little bit, and I think I want to tilt his head just a little bit just to kind of add to kind of a swaggered look there, okay? Okay, so these steps will all be essentially the same in Photopia, okay? So once I get it there, I'll go ahead and place that, okay? Now, one thing I do notice when I click off here, okay, look at the contrast of the black tie against the contrast of everything else in my image, okay? It's much darker, okay? So I kind of have this sepia tone going over everything, so I need to address that in some way. So let's go up here and do some adjustment layers, making sure that I'm on my Brando layer here. I'm going to click off my transformation controls just so I can see here. So we're going to go to image adjustments. Okay, and we've got color balance, white, black, photo filter, and I'm going to actually use a photo filter. Okay, color I've got here is a warming filter, and that's going to give it kind of this sepia tone here, okay? And I can set the density above or below to what I'd like, okay? So I've got preview on here, okay? And you can kind of see as I click on and off, see if I can get up a little closer here. Take it up just a little bit, and you see I can get his skin tones coming up there, and it's kind of warming that up a little bit. Let's see what else. We can take the contrast down just a little bit here. Again, in adjustments, we'll go to brightness and contrast, and we might take the contrast down just a little bit. Maybe take his brightness down just a little bit as well. So we kind of play with it until we get to a place where we feel like his head is kind of fitting in with the picture. Okay, now I also have like some blur on there too, and we'll address that here too. I'm going to see one more thing. Let's play with curves just a little bit here. And you can see as we play with the curves, we can kind of take that up or down. That's a little too much. I'm thinking right about in there, I'm kind of happy. Just a little tweaking there. Okay. So once I got it to where I'm happy with, and you can play with this until you're happy with it, but I'm going to stop there. We're going to go and we're going to add a filter to this, and we're going to kind of blur it just a little bit, because you see he's kind of got this sun behind him, and it's kind of giving this kind of like, walking through the desert into the sunset kind of visual blur to the outside shoulder here. So I want to kind of add that to it just a little bit here. So I'm going to go to filter, and I am going to go to my blur gallery here. Okay, and I'm gonna go, let's try the iris blur first here. Okay, and what that's going to do, everything outside of that iris is going to kind of be everything in the iris is going to be in focus, and everything outside of that iris is going to be in focus. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that in and blur that a little bit. It's going to think for a second, and you can kind of keep getting it a little closer. I want to keep playing with this until I kind of get some blur close enough to his head. There's more what I'm getting at there. And you see it's doing some thinking there. It's going to kind of give me some of that effect I like. Okay, see where his outside is kind of blurred. Maybe I go a little too far there. So we kind of get this kind of rippled effect here. Okay, there's one way. You could also do a Gaussian blur. You could also do the blur by hand. Okay, but we'll go ahead and say okay on that, which is up here. Okay, so that pretty much finishes that part of that. Okay, so let's jump back over here to Photopia Town here and see what's going on over there. All right, so we had this content aware fill, did not do any better the second time. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get our brush. We'll get a brush here, and let's see what our brush gallery looks like here. Let's just get a, let's see if I can pull this down. Nope. Let's get this guy right here. Okay, and we're going to get our eyedropper tool, and we're just going to grab this tool right here, which will put our font color right here. Okay, and we'll go back to our brush tool, and we'll make that fairly large. We're just going to start. Ooh, that is a really sharp brush. Hardness. Let's take the hardness way down to like that. A nice soft brush here, so we can kind of paint that edge out. Leave that selection going here for just the time being. Remember, this is going to be hidden, so we just kind of need to paint enough out that's going to take what we need out and leave what we need in. Okay, that looks pretty good there. Command D. All right, now let's go back over here to Brando's head. Same deal here. We're going to go in here and we are going to take our lasso tool. We're going to make a new selection here, and we are going to cut out his tie. Delete. Whoop. Command Z. Make sure you're on the right layer. On Brando there, and we'll delete that. I'm going to come over here and we're going to delete the other side here. Mr. G, could I use the magic lasso or the magic wand tool of this? Sure, it's black and white. It should do pretty quick, but if you feel good about just grabbing the lasso, either one will do just fine. Just get rid of the parts you don't need. Got a little bit of collar here I need to clean up there. Delete, Command D. All right. Now we're going to take Mr. Brando's head here. We're going to move it. We're going to grab and pull down here. Same thing. We're going to put it up here and we're going to resize it a little bit. Then we're going to hold down Shift in Photopia so it doesn't distort, so it constrains those file sizes. I'm going to plant his head on there. I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. Okay. Now, same thing in here. I'm going to do some image adjustments here. So I'm going to go to Layer, Image, and let's do a photo filter on this one as well. And here we've got the photo filter, and you see on this one it worked a lot more. It's got a really high density, 80% density with this orange color, which is really working with this sepia tone, really takes that dark down. So we go okay right there. That looks pretty good. And then let's go to filter. Let's go to let's just go to for a Gaussian blur. Let's go for a Gaussian blur here. Okay, now that is too much. So in this one, we're just going to kind of blur the whole thing here, and we're just kind of looking for that radius. And Gaussian blur kind of gives you the effect. If you ever look like through like a not that much, blurred it out of extinction. There we go. If you ever look through a like shower doors, like a glass shower door or a window that has some texture to it, it kind of adds that to it there. Okay, so let's see if I can. I'm just going to push OK, and that looks pretty good there. It gives me a little bit of blur on the outside. Okay, so back up from your image, kind of look at it. Click my background here. Still need to soften that up a little bit. Maybe I take Brando and I take the opacity down ever so much to like 90%. That kind of helps me a little bit there with the sharpness of him. Okay, so I like that. All right, so we're going to end there. That's about a half hour there. That shows you both on Photoshop and on the Photopia how to do those same kind of effects. Second part of this video, we're going to deal with this type down here and switch out the type. Okay, so do good work, and I will see you then.